And tonight I was thinking how grateful I am. When I first came here, I was extremely timid person. It seemed like the most simplest thing to do was difficult for me. And when I began attending here, I began to be asked to do things, to participate. And one of the things I was asked to do early on was to teach Sunday school. And that might seem normal for most people, but for me it seemed very daunting. And I remember turning to our book, Collectania, that we have for sale here, and I opened to this by Mrs. Eddy. She says, "Do we not all understand cowardice never conquers? To get rid of a temptation of any sort or to get out of a difficulty, we are not passive and let the wrong rule the right, but we struggle and thus conquer. We should not avoid the things that hurt us, but repeat them and meet them as their superior. Disease is a coward that leaves when you are not afraid of it." I remember I wrote that down, and I worked with it, especially Sunday mornings before I taught the Sunday school class. And I also knew that this wasn't about me. I was all afraid of what I would say or make a mistake or would I do the right thing. But this was about me getting out of the way and letting God work and use me. And with that, there can be no fear or no timidity. And this was a big beginning for me. And I began to think about this statement and use it in so many other ways, certainly in getting up Wednesday night to give a testimony, which I was also terribly afraid of doing. But Mrs. Eddy says, "You are not passive and let the wrong rule the right, but you struggle and thus conquer." And the more I did this and the more I got myself out of the way, this timidity left. It was a tremendous healing for me. I know in the Bible when it talks about David meeting Goliath, and that would certainly be a fearsome thing, he ran to meet him. He was not afraid. He knew that his God was with him and there was nothing to fear, and by that he conquered. Mrs. Eddy also says in Science and Health, "The confidence inspired by science lies in the fact that truth is real and error is unreal. Error is a coward before the truth." I've certainly learned that error is a big bully, and you've got to stand up to him and tell him to get thee behind me, Satan. And when you do it and you mean it and you have all the power of God behind it, it does go. I'm so grateful. This was a tremendous healing for me. I'm so very grateful to Mrs. Eddy for all that she's given us and for all the great things that are going on in this church.